Welcome to the Business of Property podcast. I'm Simon.
I'm Stuart.
We're both property people running our own businesses. This podcast is just us chatting, as we often do, about anything and everything property. So at the end of the last episode, Stuart, we teased that we were going to talk a little bit about some of your exciting remortgage efforts. So do you want to kick off with the, excitement?
Yeah, I mean, what teasers we are. I mean, what a cliffhanger. You know, what happened with the remortgages? Well, yes, I think we mentioned that I had three remortgages. They're not all straightforward, actually. One was a straightforward remortgage, which so they were all paused because of the C word. So let's not go into that again. But they all came back online once the banks had sorted out those people that wanted mortgage holidays and everything else. So one just came back and we've just got the funds back for that. So that's quite nice. And we got pretty much the valuation we were looking for. And that is because the property is fully rented. That always helps for the revaluation. And yeah, so that money was going to go to an investor, and hopefully he's not listening, because that money is no longer going to go to that investor. We're going to use that for a refurb. I'm joking, of course, because he'll be highly cognizant of it. I will have this conversation with him and we'll work it through. So that's going to go on to a refurb in another property that we spoke about on the previous episode, where I'm refurbishing that to a very high degree for young professionals. The second one has been taking a considerable amount of time because it was the property where we've got two properties on one freehold. And
you were doing a title split on this, yeah? Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, so we're doing a title split. And, first thing I've got to say about that is, God, how many solicitors do you have to pay for one process? It's phenomenal. So obviously I have solicitors that are working on the title split itself. I then have to pay for the solicitors of the bank who need to be paid for reasons that are still obscure to me. And also the bank themselves hadn't instructed the solicitors for months. So I've been chasing for months and months. And then as soon as that's happened, I then have to pay my new mortgage provider. So as soon as it's split, I'm then remortgaging it to a new mortgage provider, have to pay ERCs, and then pay for the new mortgage provider, Kent Reliance, their solicitors. So it's certainly not for those faint of heart, or for those that don't like giving money to solicitors.
So if this is proving so expensive, why are you doing it?
Options. So when it all comes out in the wash, we will still have, around sort of 15-ish K. And trust me, I've had a few navel gazing moments where I've thought about, is there really a point to this? Because it's a lot of effort to go through for 15K, to be honest. And speaking quite frankly, the money that we're getting out of it probably will just about match. Well, in fact, it probably doesn't match the amount we'll have spent in ERCs and solicitor fees. So your question is a highly logical, common sense question.
So let me just check there. You're freeing up 15,000, but that's before the expenses you're spending in the process.
I suddenly feel like I'm speaking to my dad. But I deserve it, because I know I did this to you last week. So yeah, I totally deserve it. Why am I doing it? The reason I'm doing it is options. So at the moment, it's a 13-bed property, two properties on one freehold, and there's 13. It's actually classed as a 13-bed, and as you can imagine, there are only a set number of providers that are ever going to give you money on a 13-bed property. It's a really niche property to have to mortgage. So that's number one, is that we'll get options. Number two, as soon as we've split it, it's then a 7-bed and a 6-bed. So that opens the market a little bit more. So I can now go to Kent Reliance and actually just increase the loan to value that I can get on the property. So as a 13-bed, maximum was 70. Now I can go 80 to 85, probably 85.
That's quite a big difference, actually.
It is a big difference. Like I say, it's not going to generate much income at this stage. But then the third and final piece, which is probably the piece that I'm really working towards, is that I will sell one of them. So I'll look to selling one of those properties for sort of refunding my investor, and also just essentially making sure the portfolio is working. So it goes back to the goals that we were speaking last week about how we're operating. Strangely enough, the 7-bed always gets 6 people in it, and this is currently a student property, whereas the 6 beds typically will get 4 or 5. So what I want to do is also use some of the funds to upgrade the properties. I mean, the really nice properties we're actually looking at potentially doing cinema rooms in them as well. So I'm thinking about changing the setup for one of those as well. So there you go. That's the rationale for why we're doing it, and hopefully will give us just more options as we move into it. It is a lot of pain in this term, because every time I see a solicitor email, did you know you have to? Well, some solicitors, you pay them just to receive your emails. Did you ever seen that on an invoice before?
No, not broken down to that level.
Yeah, well,
I'm sure I have been charged for that in the past, but just not noted as such.
Yeah, well, I've now seen some of these invoices. So, so like I say, it's a lot of pain in the short term, but I think, once this is all out and in the wash, and currently we do have 10 of those 13 rooms booked from September. So, I'm hoping that the cash flow coming in will just start to cover off some of that.
Those occupancy rates are lower than I would have expected, though. Do you think that's just because students don't find housing in big enough groups, or 2 of the bedrooms are terrible, or why is occupancy consistently a bit low in those?
Well, it's and again, it's a good comment, because it's absolutely true. So one of the rooms is really small and it's on the ground floor, so it's not as appealing. What I've tried to do in other properties, wherever we've got a room where I think that's the room that won't go, I kind of try and make that the best room. So in one of my properties that's 100% occupied, he touches wood again, we have a really tiny room. But what we did was we made the other rooms en suite, and we made the bathroom available only for that room. So when you get the keys to this room, you get the keys to your own bedroom and the bathroom. So you get your own bathroom suite. And that made that room much more appealing. In another property I'm working on now, the smallest room, we're actually giving its own toilet and washroom, even though it will still be one of the smallest rooms in the house. So the plan will be, and again, once we've refinanced this, is that we change some of that. So it could be like I mentioned on the other one, maybe we take a room out and just make it much more appealing. Second part of your question, so why is that? Yeah, number one is that there is a room that isn't the greatest, because it is the smallest and it's on the ground floor, which, again, if you're in a student property, isn't great, because you've always got people milling around in the kitchen and whatnot. Yeah. But the second point is a much more, I want to say, macro economic factor, but that's probably far too posh a word. It's more about the fact that students aren't looking in big groups anymore, which kind of alludes to your other point. They're much smaller groups. In fact, they're more likely to want to go, 1, 2s, or 3s, which we think is probably anecdotally down to the whole purpose-built student accommodation movement. Most university towns now, so they're used to living in studios with shower rooms. So they've become accustomed to a very high standard of living. Typically, the bigger properties, where you're going in 5, 6, 7 of you, are going to be the older houses that aren't quite as good as what they've just come from.
With properties that are as big as that, could you actually split them? Could you split them into a few studio flats, or sort of perhaps apartments within the bigger building?
You should definitely come and work for my business, Simon, because this is exactly what we're thinking about. Not that you'd ever want to work as a partner, obviously.
Well, if you're already thinking about it, though, I might be a bit late to the party, really.
Good shout. I've looked at potentially splitting them into 3 apartments, but what I want to do, because we actually had one of them, you could actually make an 8-bed, but the what could have been the 8th bed, we wouldn't legally be allowed to use it as a room, so clearly we wouldn't. But depending on the students, because we're in the we're actually literally a stone's throw from the art college, it's turned into essentially an art room. So students just go in there, put their easels in there, and just use that for painting and put their paintings. So we've made use of it. So the first thing we want to do is just reconfigure a little bit. And like I say, I've already looked at cinema seating. So the two properties are very similar. And in fact, there is one room that already in there that's got a gym. So, multi-purpose gym, which I had reservations about, if I'm honest, leaving in there because of students, potential alcohol and other things. However, it seems to have gone down quite well.
Hopefully you did a full risk assessment on the presence of the gym equipment.
Yeah. I'm just going to say yes, did. But they've treated it quite well, and it's so that works. So it's probably going to be, before we go down the route of reconfiguring, I'm just going to add a couple more, and a couple more sort of USPs to the property, which, like I say, will be a cinema room, and then downstairs, just making it all flow a little bit better. And then I think we may well get those people coming from PBSA, purpose-built student accommodation, and liking what's on offer as part of a bigger group.
So gradual steps, perhaps, towards the more individual living.
Yeah. Sorry, the other thing that's slowed that down is because if we do look at multiple apartments, I then have to look at planning again, and potentially if we're going to set them up as apartments, and given the cost we've just incurred to split this when it finally does, I kind of want to maybe just spend a little less on solicitors, architects and planning, and maybe just more on the benefit for the tenants themselves.
Yeah, the 15k that you've already spent on solicitors doesn't leave much spare to reinvest in reconfiguring.
Yeah, I mean, just to be clear, it's probably not 15k on solicitors. It's more closer probably to around 5 on solicitors, but we're probably going to spend close to 15 on ERCs. So it's going to be the best part of 20 grand actually, just for this process to have happened. So not for the faint of heart.
So moving on to your next remortgage, you've been looking at trying to get yourself off a bridge for your flip project. So how's that going? The last time we spoke, your chosen mortgage broker was less than happy with you.
Okay, yeah. So the first thing that will happen was the original product got retracted. Then when we got the second one, they didn't like the fact that we'd been in receipt of a bounce back loan, because that raised questions of long-term affordability. So we're now back in at the coalface and just filling the forms, and obviously put all of that information in front of the broker and the bank to say, look, we've had a bounce back loan, so and these are the things we've done. So we're hopeful of getting it. We've so this is the property where we've turned it from a 1-bed into a 2/3 bed. We've just had a valuation on it actually from an estate agent. So we were gunning for a target price of around 350. They said we could push 375, but I think that was the glass half full optimism of the estate agent. But we kind of agreed that when we put it on the market, we'll go for around 350, because that's kind of what we want, and I'd rather price it to sell.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really good news. And even if we get slightly less than that, I mean, we bought it for, I'll share the figures once we're all done and dusted, because I think, I don't like to jinx these things.
That's fair.
But essentially, the estate agent's valuation, to be fair to him, his true valuation was very close to ours, so we were very happy with that. It just means that when we're following this through, we've got confidence, particularly with the remortgage, that we'll get what we want. And just to reiterate, so we're on quite a good bridge actually with Interbay. It's pretty good for a bridge. I think it's gone down to, it was around 0.64. I can't remember the exact figure. I think it's slightly lower than that. I think it is 0.5 something now, which for a bridge is pretty good. Obviously, 6% per annum for any other buy to let, you'd be in squeaky bum time. But for a bridge, it's okay. But we obviously don't want to stay on it forever. So we're just in the process now of actually getting it rented and then getting that, hopefully getting that mortgage.
Yeah, once you've remortgaged and got it rented, then it just gives you breathing space, doesn't it? So you can take your time a bit more. But even on the bridge, presumably there would still be rental profit in that property if you had to stay on the bridge.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there is. I mean, I haven't done the testing on it, but the rent, the bridge cost, the monthly cost would be 50% or less of the rent.
Yeah, so that could certainly work. Maybe not as well as you might like, but it could work. So.
The thing is, Simon, it has to. In these situations, it has to, because if you didn't get remortgage, we're not going to leave it empty. So, even if the bridge was 90% of the rent, it would work for us because, we want someone in there because it also helps to have someone living in there when you're trying to sell it. Although we've dressed it really nicely, we've taken a lot of photos, which I'll share with you.
Excellent.
Afterwards, but
do you like looking at
it's looking really, really good.
Well-dressed property.
yeah, and that's down to my business partner as opposed to me on this one. But I think the flat itself was about 860 square foot, and it was a one bed. So essentially, the bedroom was huge, and the living area was huge. So what we've done is we've essentially turned what was the kitchen into a bedroom, and then we've turned most of what was the living area into a master bedroom with a sliding door into a huge dressing area, stroke study, stroke potentially third bedroom, giving it a second shower room, and then you've got a kitchen diner. So it's now just utilised the space, and that leads us on nicely to something we touched on before. So what we had to do last week was we had to drive to IKEA, which I wasn't keen on doing because I'd heard about these mile-long queues in IKEA. And I said to my partner, if there's a mile-long queue, I said, you can trust me, I'll be driving around that roundabout and back out again.
Yeah.
I
can't imagine queuing just to get into the torture that is IKEA.
Yeah. Well, last week it was unbelievable, and I think we went pretty much around opening time. We inadvertently hadn't planned it, but I picked my partner up from the station. We drove to IKEA, and the car park was it was empty, pretty much empty. We parked outside the front door, which is something that's never happened before. It was a revelation just to park outside the front. Walked around with a trolley, got everything we needed, walked out again without, and of course, still had a hot dog, even though the condiment section's closed.
So they were serving hot food, but you couldn't put any sauce on it.
No, they gave you sachets and said, So anyone thinking about IKEA, you early in the day, although I'm sure it's changed, because the sort of little addendum to that is my partner is also doing my business partner on this one is also doing a similar thing down in Margate, and he had to go down to Margate this week and sent me a photo of him in about a 1.5 mile long queue. So it's not all sunshine and rainbows at IKEA.
No, obviously depends a lot on timing and perhaps location as well. But,
yeah, indeed.
I'm not a fan of walking around IKEA. It's something that I've quite happily paid the extra delivery charges to avoid doing.
Yeah, and no one can blame me for that. And my question is, why do you always come out with bamboo? That's the question in IKEA. No matter what you're going for, you always come out with a stick of bamboo.
I don't think I've ever come out with a stick of bamboo. I think that must be just you, Stuart. I do normally come out with some random kitchen utensil that I had no intention of purchasing, but or in fact, on some occasions, even knew existed. But yeah, not bamboo. That's different.
Well, I'd like some support from this. So if there is anyone that's still listening, and when we're talking about IKEA, we totally understand if you've switched off by now. But if you are still listening and you have bought bamboo in IKEA, please do drop us a message, tweet us, and just support the cause.
How about I'll extend the request to whatever random things you've come out of IKEA with without any intention of purchasing when you went in. I'd be intrigued to know.
Yeah, it'd be good to see what comes back.
Well,
we could just do a questionnaire. We put it out on LinkedIn, one of the platforms. Questionnaire. What do you mostly come out with? And I think bamboo's going to win. I'm sticking to
it. Well, we'll see if we can run that questionnaire and report back in a future episode. So, getting back to property briefly, with your with this flat, it's in Croydon. You're now planning to put it out for rent, which you weren't previously planning to do. Have you checked the Croydon licensing requirements for rentals?
No, you mentioned that before, didn't you? I think you said it costs £700. I haven't looked at it yet. Obviously, I will prior to renting it, of course.
I think there's a selective licensing scheme in place at the moment, which covers, I think, all rentals in Croydon. And the current scheme is coming to an end in September, but they've currently got, well, they have had a consultation on a new scheme, and that has been approved and is currently, approved within Croydon Council, but is now awaiting national approval before it can actually go into place. But I assume they're intending for that to go into place pretty much straight after the other one finishes.
Yeah.
But as I understand it at the moment, the license you buy now will expire at the end of the current scheme, which is, well, pretty much weeks away. So I'm a little unsure how the costing for that will work or can be justified.
Yeah.
I think they have reduced the fee for this last sort of little bit, but still, I think it's still hundreds of pounds. So.
Well, yeah, the website still says £750. So
yeah, you have to dig a bit. There's a PDF somewhere which defines the newer charge information.
Yeah,
I should get a little plug in. The reason I know some of this is because I've been building new data collection and exposure information for licensing schemes into PATMA. So soon, maybe not when this episode airs, but soon you will be able to go to PATMA Property Prospector, and when you look up an area or a particular property in an area, it will tell you what licensing requirements are for that area.
Very good.
It's the storage and collection of data is pretty much there, but there's over 300 councils throughout the UK. So actually collecting that data and then checking that it's in a sensible format and readable and meaningful takes a bit of time. So yeah, it'll be there when it's ready.
Yeah, well, that genuinely will be useful, because until you'd mentioned it, I'd be honest, I hadn't even considered it. So to have that available would be very good. And you can post me my £20 note after this podcast.
I will, of course. We are getting close to time. Was there anything else you'd like to bring into this episode?
No, I think I've shared enough. IKEA hot dogs and solicitors is
just on IKEA. Actually, one saving grace: they sell frozen veggie balls. So they're like meatballs, but without the meat. And
makes sense.
And they're really nice. I really like those. And of course they're frozen, so they keep forever. And you can just get a few out when you need them. And
well, who knew? Frozen vegetables.
Indeed, I recommend giving those a go next time you're stuck in IKEA. Although, obviously, you need to make sure that you haven't got a long queue ahead of you for the checkouts or something, because they'll defrost.
Yeah. Well, you can get them at the end. So there you go. There's your tip. You get them at the end once you've gone through.
Yeah, indeed. They are past the food section, at least in Croydon anyway.
Yeah.
Is past the sort of main checkouts, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's got its own separate checkout bit.
Yeah. Well, I think we've plugged IKEA enough. I think they've done enough from us.
Yeah. Well, I'll ask them for their £20 notes. I'm not sure we'll be successful.
Me either.
So I think we better leave it there. So if you've been enjoying listen to Stuart and I chat about IKEA and little bits of property here and there, please do leave us a rating and review. We very much appreciate hearing from anybody. And show notes can be found at thebusinessofproperty.com. We will talk to you again next week.